So today we're going to be talking about a new feature that we want to get into GitWit, which is code modularization. So as of right now, when you open GitWit and click on start building, create your own new project. Let's say for now we'll make a to-do list web app. When you create your new project, all of the code changes and all of the code that's being generated is going to go into one file, which is app.js. As you can see, the to-do list web app has been created, which works. And let's say you add more prompts onto that, like let's say add a dark mode. All of the modifications are going to be made on top of this app.js file. So now we have a light mode and dark mode button on top of what we had done before. So yeah, perfect. This is nice. Now we have a working web app, but there's a problem. As we want to make bigger and bigger web app applications, there's going to be more and more code in this single file. So what we want to do is basically have a process where we can modularize the code into different files that all together function for one unit. Now there's a lot of benefits to code modularization. We're not going to dive into that right now, but we're going to be discussing how we want to modularize the code and what process we want to follow for this. Alright. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about our process for how we want to modularize the code. So first of all, we have a React project right now, which is going to be an app.js file that has all the code for the React application. Ideally, what we'd want is a modularized tool that we would click. And after you click the modularized tool, you're supposed to get back your app.js file and new modularized code that your app.js file refers to. And in this process, you'd have to pass in a prompt which has the current project tree, whether there's any errors or if there isn't any error in the current file execution, and the content of each file that is there in the SRC right now. So for the first one, this would just be app.js, no error, and the project directory which has just app.js, and the contents of app.js obviously. Now you do it once, then you get back your output, which is going to be app.js and one modularized code file that app.js refers to. And let's say you want to modularize again, you click that tool again. It's the same thing is passed in again, this time with the contents of both app.js and mod1.js with the tree that has both of these files. And then you would have, let's say, two modularized files that app.js can refer to. So this way, basically, as you keep clicking this modularize button, you're going to be able to make your code, you're going to be able to split your code up into different elements. Okay, so now we're going to be creating a new project and we're going to be showcasing this process of modularization for that project. So let's say I just create a new project which is like make a form that takes in user ID, password, and then displays a new screen with the to-do list for the user. Alright, so now we have the web app. I'm going to put in any username, any password, sign in, and now we have a to-do list for that user like we just talked about. So all of the code for this is in one file which is in app.js, right? Now ideally we would want this to be split up into different files and be more modular. So that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to be talking about the prompt now. So the prompt is going to be something like this, where you tell it that you're a front-end developer. The important parts are that you give it the project tree, the fact that there's no errors, or if there's any errors, we have a basic prompt that allows for code generation in the way we want it to, and then you give it the contents of each of the files inside SRC. So let's try this for the code we just generated. So as of right now, the prompt has the right tree directories, as in app.js and index.js, which is right according to this here, the current project. It's only app.js and index.js. So this is correct. I'm going to take in this prompt, put it into 3.5, tell it the contents of app.js. and then let's have it generate the code. Alright, so now what it's decided to do is create a new login form.js, and then it's given the content of login form.js and the updated app.js. Alright, so now I'm going to do what right now. So ideally this is supposed to be done by code. We're going to be developing this later on, but now for now I'm going to do it manually in the environment. I'm going to create a new file which is login form.js. Now in this login form.js I'll put in the code for login form.js, change the code for app.js. App.js is, yeah. Yeah, so there's app.js. I'm going to reload the application, and as you can see with the new two files, app.js and login form.js, the app still works the same. So that means that this modularization was successful. So now we can move on to another iteration of this modularization like we discussed. So right now this is going through one thread, but when we're going to be evaluating through the GitWit server and through React eval, all of these are going to be running parallelly. So there's going to be multiple iterations or multiple runs of this running. That way we're not going to be able to maintain one thread. That's why we're passing all of these again, rather than assuming that it has memory of the previous prompt. Okay, so now that we've modularized the code once, we're going to do the same thing again. So let's take this prompt that we have, take the prompt, put that into GPT. Now something's changed. So now we have a new JS file which is loginform.js. So we need to change the tree structure accordingly. So here in src we'll need to add in loginform.js. So what are we adding in? Yeah, loginform.js. So this is the new tree structure, which is both these files. There's no errors, and the contents of the file is app.js. The contents for app.js are and for login form.js it's yep. Now we're gonna pass that in. Alright, so now as you can see, it's going to create a separate file for the to-do list component. Now this is the third modularization step, second modularization step, sorry. And it's decided to create a new file which is to-do list.js. So according to that, this is going to be done automatically in code, but now we'll do it manually. Create a new file, to-do list.js. Check this out. To-do list.js, put it in app.js. Now as you can see over here, the only file that was changed was app.js and to-do list.js. It didn't give us login form.js, so we'll have to account for that in our code key. As in, if it does not change a file, then it probably won't give that output back. But it does give the file names and the code, so we can just have that work through the code. So now we have the code modularized into two different files. Now login form.js, to-do list.js, which works with app.js. So now I'm going to reload this and see if it still works. So as you can see, the username is still there. I have entered in my username, enter in a password, sign in, and the to-do list element is still there. So the project is still functioning exactly the same way as it was with the single code file, but now we've been able to successfully split it up into the login form and the to-do list. So that way the code has become modular and we can work with individual elements better. Now later on, this is going to become a part of a system where the different files have their own embeddings or some way to represent them, so that the code can work on individual files rather than having to work on the entire code itself. But that is for a later stage. Right now our objective is basically to take one long existing project file and to come up with the process to iteratively reduce or iteratively make it more modular, and that is what this is doing right now. Now we want to implement this in code next, and also we want to test a lot of its weaknesses out. This is a pretty simple example, but if we try this with more complicated examples, there might be cases where there would be errors. Then we would have to pass the error in, and if there is an error at a step, we would pass the error in at that step, make the modifications, and then see if it's working. But yeah, that's for later. This is it for now. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. Yeah.